The floor is yours.
Cool. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. And thank you for having me today. I'm really excited to kind of give this discussion here. And, for the discussion here today, just by way of, kind of a quick outline for the discussion. So I'll just go through a brief introduction of who I am, what brought me here today, a little bit of like, hey, just sales overview. When should you even do a demo? When is that appropriate in that sales cycle? And then once we've identified that it's an appropriate time, what are the actual nuts and bolts behind running a great presentation so you can, drive your sales process, drive to a close, and do so in a, predictable fashion. And then we can edit with some questions, but feel free to interrupt me at all throughout this presentation here today with any specific questions to your sales workflow, sales presentation process. Be happy to answer any of those questions there. So let's just kind of jump right into things. Let's get going. So by way of introduction, my name is Larson Stair. I'm CEO and co-founder of Demoflow. Demoflow is a platform that helps software sales organizations really differentiate themselves from competitors by running really amazing and captivating presentations and software demonstrations. My background, I've been working in sales for the better part of the past decade now, and specifically within remote enterprise software sales for the past 5 years. So I'm very familiar to the remote selling environment, pitching over Zoom, working through those different selling motions without, encountering somebody face to face. So we'll go through some tips and tricks and things I've picked up along the ways to help to really effectively help you communicate more effectively as you're walking through a product demonstration. And since working with Demoflow, I've literally worked with hundreds of SaaS sales organizations. So we've picked up a lot more tips and tricks along the way to really help you to what are the best practices around running a software presentation, whether it's the initial one, even discovery call, initial presentation, maybe further discussions up the pipeline. We'll walk through kind of standard motions that you should be following as you're walking through a presentation. But before we get into the actual nuts and bolts of how to run a software presentation and demo, let's talk about when is it even appropriate, because that is really the way to have the best presentation or demo. It all starts with discovery and asking great questions and uncovering pain and need. And so when you think about the sales cycle, I mean, you have tools out there for everything. We have our lead gen side of things, so bringing people in, getting them qualified. But that discovery point, everyone has a pretty common thing is everyone has a tendency to want to show product all the time right away because they think the product is the thing that's going to sell and really move this deal along. When in reality, you have to start with really great discovery and a deep understanding of your prospects' pains, needs, current state, and what are they trying to accomplish? And really, does your solution even fit what they're trying to accomplish? And uncovering that first is the most important part and will help to queue you up for an amazing presentation, but they really can't come before that discovery call. So when you go into a discovery, spending a decent chunk of time diving into how are they doing things today? What are some of the best practices that they've found to be really successful in running, whatever they're trying to accomplish here? What are they looking at as they look towards next year, next quarter? What are they wanting to change or initiatives that they're focused on? And by uncovering all that in the discovery call without showing your product, you're focusing on them and really understanding and building rapport. So, you might come into a product demonstration and realize with good discovery, I shouldn't show parts of the platform, or I should stay focused on this or that. When if you didn't do good discovery, you can actually lose people along the way when you're going to that product demonstration. So some people do disco demo on the same call. Some people separate those into separate conversations. But the point stands is you really need to place good emphasis on running great discovery calls, asking good questions, uncovering that need and that pain in their initiatives, and then focusing on how can you tailor that presentation and that demo to the needs that you uncovered as you walk into that presentation. So I just like to kind of set the stage there on, really where does this come in? And you really shouldn't show product until you've uncovered that. And sometimes with longer enterprise cycles, I've seen it happen multiple discovery calls before you're even ready to show product. But I just like to set the stage on where do we even really fit into the equation here, and when is it even appropriate to show your product so you can set yourself up for success. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go into the nuts and bolts of this. So we're going to assume that we've done great discovery here. We've really uncovered some great needs, some pains, and you've, found ways that your solution can help to get that person to the desired future state. And so when it comes to running a great software presentation or demo, it effectively breaks down into 3 parts. And really, it's really less about, it's all about communication. I want you to be able to hear me, see me, and understand what I'm saying clearly and effectively, all while showing my platform in a cohesive manner. But then also, how do we follow up appropriately? So we're going to focus a little bit on first, what does the setup look like? How do you want to set up your environment so you can be heard, seen, and communicate effectively before you go into, okay, the live software presentation? How do we walk through an actual demo? And then the follow-up on the back half. So we're going to basically be covering all the parts that surround the product demonstration, as well as the actual live demo. So let's get it kicked off and talk about the setup here. So the setup really just kind of boils down to three main parts here. Is, can you hear me and can you see me? It's all about communication, right? Our webcams are really tools nowadays that can, I think Dawn came out with some research that shows that it's more effective and your close rate's going to be better if you have your camera on. So it's really about this communication here. So we want to effectively be able to be heard and seen. And then, do I have all of my assets prepared? I mean, really, Michael, we were just talking about this, someone that you came in contact with that maybe didn't have all their assets prepared, and it can be kind of a fumbly process as they're getting into their presentation. It can leave a really initial bad taste in your mouth if you're not setting the stage appropriately and have all of your information right there at your fingertips. And the last part would be, am I ready? Am I ready to go into this presentation? Do I have my notes right at my fingertips? Can I read all the things that I need to be saying so I can, again, not be juggling around to multiple screens or looking for my notes from last time or 2 times ago? It's really important to have all this consolidated right here at your fingertips. So first part, can you hear me? What I like to do, what I'm speaking into right now, is I have a mic right here. So I like to have a communication so you can hear me effectively, whether that be a headset. And I always like to do this little demonstration here where I'm going to switch from a microphone that's external to my actual macro one. And you should hear the difference between how my voice sounds right now versus if I move back to my external mic, which I just showed you, should sound a little bit more full. This thing cost me like 40 bucks. And so whether it's a standalone mic that you have set up attached to your computer or a headset, it's really important to make sure that they can hear you effectively and you're communicating with clarity. Second part here is, can you see me? A lot of times we have our webcams are all installed on our computers. I personally think it's really worth having, spending 50 bucks, 100 bucks on a webcam, because we spend all day, every day now in Zoom, it feels like. And so to have people be able to see you with clarity and good lighting is another important part to communication, and make sure that, again, you're communicating effectively. They hear you, they see you well. And so those are the kind of the first 2 parts there. And then the last part is going to be a little inception here, but what is you as the audience, what are you seeing behind me? So this is obviously a slide of what it looks like behind me here. But I set up my desk here in a very purposeful manner. My door is right over there. It's my office. I have another door right there. But if someone were to walk in right now, no one is going to see that. It's a closed environment, so there's not a lot of background noise. And granted, part of this is a luxury that I have because I do have an office here. But setting up your surroundings in a way that hopefully you're facing a wall where the camera's behind, facing behind you, and there's maybe some kind of a light here, or I don't know, maybe some art or whatever you want to be doing. So just to make sure you're kind of controlling all the factors possible and doing your best to captivate that audience's attention without introducing other distractions that could be in play. So the second part, so we just talked a little bit about the setup, the mechanics, the hardware that you might need, and how you set up a good presentation environment. Second part here is around the materials. First off, if you use any sales decks or sales assets, you want to have those at your disposal. Get those ready ahead of time. It may seem obvious, but sometimes we're flying a little quickly here, and you might not have all the things you need, or you lose it in a different file, or things need to change, or what have you. But just taking 5-10 minutes ahead of time to make sure you have all of those assets ready to go. Any customizations that you need to do are ready and completed. But then also the second part is your actual product. And it can be frequently missed, where it's like, oh, a lot of platforms need some configuration on the front half. And you might even want to preload your product. So once you get into the actual live demonstration portion of it, you're not sitting there watching a loading screen as you're moving around. Having that preloaded can, again, kind of set the context of like, it's quick, it's snappy, it's ready to go. And even if you do have some latency or loading issues down the line, at least you started it off on the right foot and you're prepared with your assets, your product is ready to go. And then the last part is I'm ready. You want to appear like, hey, when I do a summary of last time, I have all of my notes. I know who I'm speaking with, what their pains are. And so I'm always speaking a relevant story, really, that is really catered to what we talked about last time and is kind of really, framing our product in a way that highlights us as the right solution here. So making sure you have your assets ready, your products ready, and you have all of your information right here at your fingertips. So that's kind of the first part of the setup. I mean, it's frequently missed. A lot of people just kind of wherever they're at, they'll just do it. And if you're running a lot of presentations day in and day out, this is really important and can just be a set it and forget it type of thing. And once you have it ready, it's ready to go. So it just boils down to the communication part. So can you hear me and can you see me effectively? Do I have all of my information and my assets and product? Is it all prepped and ready to go? And then do I have all the information that I need to help run a great call and help to speak a language that is customized to my audience on the other end and really speaks a language that is resonating with them? Okay, so the next part of this, one last prep, I always like to do this A/B comparison. So when it comes to, it's a very important distinction here. So what you'll notice about my screen right now, my screen, you don't see any bookmarks. There's no background that you're seeing. It's very tight, it's very closed. There's nothing that's gonna jump in and distract you. You'll never see any notifications from anyone else on my team or anything's coming up. But what I wanna show is the bad example. So if I were to reshare my screen and look at something like this, and it might feel exaggerated, but honestly, like this screen right here is just chaos. Like you have all these tabs up here, you see a Slack that's open right here, and there's a lot that you can do to tighten this up. Like if I were gonna show this window right here, really what I'd wanna do is get rid of all your other browsers, put Facebook away, please, dear God. Get rid of your Slack channel and mute your notifications so you don't hear that annoying sound going off all the time. It's just small things, but it's super distracting on the receiving end. So get rid of that. If you're so inclined to have a really distracting background, please get rid of that as well. Like I like black backgrounds. Some people, it just can be a little distracting. It's like, what am I even looking at right here? So getting rid of all this extra noise that can be a part of this. Even this toolbar right down here, move it to a different screen or collapse it entirely. As you're cleaning this up, you can even go as far to say, I want to get rid of all my bookmarks, and maybe it goes far to say, I want to full screen it. So it's a drastic difference. And granted, that was a very extreme example, but we've seen a lot of people that just show their screen and don't have any regard with what's on there or what they're showing in the background, and it's just so distracting. It's like, what do you only have a few moments to really captivate people's attention, especially when you're competing against many different people in a deal. And so it's really in your best interest to take 2 seconds just to clean up your desktop a little bit and make sure you're sharing the right screen. And so as I transition back to my previous screen right here, one quick and easy way to do this, and this may be pretty obvious, but a lot of people miss this. And as we've spoken to more and more sales teams, we're noticing that people don't really know the difference between sharing a desktop and sharing one application. So this is one quick and easy way to say, I never want anyone to see anything other than just this screen. And you can do that by just sharing the application. So that could be, for us, we do all of our presentations in Demoflow, but this could be a actual Google Chrome browser. But why this is important, what this does is any Slack notifications, those pings that come in, or your icons on the toolbar at the bottom are jumping up and down, none of that will be seen. And you could literally hold, like, I'm gonna do it right now. I can pull my Slack channel right over this presentation window and none of you see anything. And so really this is just a surefire way to make sure I'm not showing anything I don't want to, and just helps to make sure that I'm showing the right things in the way I want to. So always show the application. Don't necessarily always show the desktop. There's a few outlying situations there, but just a general good best practice and rule of thumb. All right. And I'll be sure to monitor the chat as we're kind of moving through it. Let's see here. Evelyn has a question. Navigation app, should we show a phone screen on a demo platform like Zoom? Nice. That's a great question. So we get this quite a bit is when I have a mobile application in addition to a web browser, and I want to show different parts or how this can manifest in other ways. You know, we've tested out a lot of different ways to show a mobile app. Really, my best practices, we've used web-based browsers, we've tried a whole different slew of things, is actually just logging into Zoom, the mobile app on your phone, and sharing the screen on your phone and walking through the application that way. What that does is it brings up your mobile app in a very big screen, really. Like it really is very clear picture. It's super snappy and quick, and you can move seamlessly between sharing a browser and sharing your mobile application. And so that would be probably some of my best practices there for doing that, is trying to, it would require you to log into that meeting twice. And so you just log in on your mobile, log in on your desktop, and then you can move back and forth between those two. And then do you advise companies to add a request a button, demo button on their website? I think there's some data out there that suggests that that's maybe not the most clickable object. I've heard of things like request a conversation, get in touch with our team, other types of verbiage there. I don't know the specific, conversion factors on that, but I'm not sure if request a demo is the best language that you'll want to use there when it comes to enticing people to book a meeting with you. Thank you for the question, Evelyn. Alrighty, so if there are no other questions right now, what I'd like to move into next is we talked all about the setup and how to get yourself all ready to go. Now let's talk to the actual live demonstration portion of this. Like, how do you actually walk through your presentation and your demo in a cohesive manner, and that has some structure so you can help to really consistently push deals forward and in a professional manner. So when it comes to live presentations, I basically follow these 5 steps almost every single time without question. Is I'm going to go through an introduction or agenda, what we talked about last time, a quick summary, a bit of a company overview depending upon who I'm speaking with and if I've spoken to them in the past, going into the actual solution that I'm going to be showing, and then specifically talking about next steps, which is missed all the time. And it's really a crucial key to making sure you carry momentum beyond that hour that you spend with them, 30 minutes that you spend with them, and they don't fall into that black abyss hole after you had a great conversation and you never hear from them again. So we'll walk through each of these and how, kind of best practices around how to structure this at each of these points. So these first 3 bullets here, so introduction, agenda, summary of last time, company overview. Let's talk about the introduction agenda. All of these are going to be quick. You don't want to spend too much time on this. This isn't the focus, but it's a good way to sift out problems that could happen as you're moving throughout the presentation. So on the introduction agenda side of things, I do this pretty frequently actually, where you get new attendees or you get a team that joins a call and people maybe you didn't expect on that discussion. CEOs are horrible about this. Well, they'll jump in and they try to derail the whole conversation, and they're like talking about things that you weren't prepared for. And so my best practice around the intro is just, welcome people to call, do your chit chat. But if there are people that you don't recognize or you haven't spoken to yet, call them out and be like, hey, I have a quick question for you. I know we haven't spoken yet, Michael. I have a quick question for you, Michael. We haven't spoken yet. What would make this a really great call for you today? How can I, what are you really concerned about? And take like 1 or 2 minutes just to understand what they care about, because that could be a person that totally derails your conversation if you don't do like a little micro discovery right there. So that's a good best practice as you're welcoming people, just to isolate that person. And it can also be useful if you have a really quiet room, so to speak, or audience. You could literally say, Jared, let me ask you a question specifically. We haven't heard from you yet. Let me ask you a little bit about this. And, kind of dive into specific things there. So it's a good kind of best practice. Second part of this would be confirming time slot. So what can happen is, hey, we have an hour booked for this today. Actually, didn't do this today. Michael, do we still have an hour booked for the conversation here today? Does that still work?
Yeah, and you're good to go over time too if you need to. We didn't schedule back-to-back sessions, so as much time as you need.
Yeah, so what I didn't do, but that's the right thing to be doing, is confirming that time slot. Because what can happen here, if you don't take the 2 seconds to confirm this, is, oh man, you have the manager that says, or leader that's like, hey, we booked an hour, but I was never intending on staying for an hour, and they cut you off halfway. And if you know that and sift that out ahead of time, you're going to change your presentation. You might get right to the nitty gritty right away and what you actually want to be showing. So again, take that 2 seconds. Hey, do we still have the time slot that's available? Yes, no, great. Moving on. And then the last part would be an agenda. Just like I did here today, we're going to walk through 4 to 6 bullets here. I'm just going to give you an expectation of what to, expect on this call here today, and make sure that you get quick confirmation. Hey, does this feel good for everyone here today? Anything else we should add or miss, or anything else there? And it's just these micro agreements help to sift out any problems as you're moving throughout it. And then as we move into the second part, so again, each of these, while it's taking me longer to explain them, it's 2 to 3 minutes. These are not a whole lot of time spent on this, particularly on the summary. This is not a novel here. You're not repeating verbatim everything that was spoken last time. It's concise. It's a quick summary of last time, and then a confirmation. Hey, this is what we talked about last time. These are the outstanding questions that I needed to get answers for you on, and next steps that we discussed. Did I miss anything? That's a crucial part. It's another opportunity to catch something that you may have missed. They might say, no, Larson, we don't integrate with that. That's totally wrong. And then you might need to change things. And so if you don't do this, you could go down a rabbit hole, and they're like, wait, hold on. This is not what we discussed last time. You're showing us the wrong thing. And then you're kind of dead in the water. So quick and easy ways to just kind of sift out any problems that could be happening ahead of time. And then last part is company overview. This is probably the most painful part that we've seen in demos across all different industries and software companies. Is people think, it's all about their company and all about their founders and when we were founded, and we have all these, the NASCAR slide of all these great customers we have. My personal opinion here is I want to keep this very high level, and so I can cater my company's story a little bit to your pains and make us feel like the perfect solution. Frankly, they don't really care about your founder story. They don't really care when you were founded or how many companies that you're using right now. They want to know that you can solve their problems right now and get them to their desired solution. That's all this is really about here. And so I keep it super brief. You cater this talk tracks to the pains that they're speaking to, and it's a really easy place to lose people, particularly when you're using slides. So I try to keep it really quick and very punchy and very personalized to you. So an example of that would be something that we're starting to use, where we say, at Demoflow, right now, everyone has a million different competitors that they're going up to, and every single deal that they do, it's really hard now to differentiate yourself from the pack. And so that's what we allow you to do, is on every single interaction, follow a great process to help you stand out from the crowd. Or if we uncover more pains, I could change that just slightly. Or another example would be, how a solutions overview, it's not super wordy, it's very punchy. This is where we help out, blah, 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 blah. Or something like this as well would be, why you, Michael, as a leader, why you should love Demoflow. Really quick, easy to look at. You're staying focused on the words that I'm saying and not trying to read a novel on a slide here. So, really, when it comes to the company overviews or quick stuff, it should be personalized to them, include some of those pains that you're discussing, and make sure you keep it, really specific to them and less about you. Alrighty, so we talked a little bit about the front half. Now we're actually getting into actual live presentation, walking through your software demonstrations and what are best practices around how to articulate the value of what you're about to show and the outcomes that they can get. So you're really catering to their pains and walking through it in a concise manner. This is another really important part. This is where people do what we call feature dumping. Is, oh, our solution has this filter, and if you do this filter, it has this, and if you select it this way, and let me go into the user settings, you're gonna love this, and just walk through a novel of, I think it's also called a harbor tour, where you're basically just showing people it has this and that and this and that, and it's really easy to lose people really quickly, and it's easy to be derailed because you're just so caught up in showing the features that you have and not articulating why they should care or why it matters to them. And so this next part that I'll show is called the tell, show, tell methodology. This is not my my training method here. This is something I learned from the Demo to Win team. We've been working closely with their team and helping to, we see a lot of parallels between what they preach on and train on and what our solution offers. But really effectively how this is, kind of articulated is, it's pretty simple, is I'm going to use a slide on the front half and I'm going to tell you what I'm about to show you. And then I'm going to transition into a live URL, your actual platform. And I'm going to show you what I just told you I was going to show you. And then you transition back to a slide where you can show value points, whether that be a customer testimonial, a use case, an outcome that they can achieve. It could just be an industry stat. If you don't have any customers yet, or you're super pre-product, pre-revenue, pre-everything. What this does is people just inherently absorb photos and images more than walking through a complex software. But you do need to prove that it works. And so by setting the context on the front half, saying, this is what you're about to see. I'm going to show you a little bit about this next part of the solution. This is what you can expect. And then walking through that solution in very targeted, feature specific, in the pains, trying to cater that to that prospect. And so again, that second part is really important because you don't want to go off the rails. I'm just going to show you 2 or 3 things. See, it works. I told you. Now let me explain to you why this is going to change your world and make life so much better, with a finishing slide and some value points there. So to give an example of how this can typically work, so I can do a tell, show, tell right now, and kind of one of the ways that we do it. So this would be an opening tell slide. So with Demoflow, we allow you to tell a creative story unlike anything else you've ever done with software presentations. You can bring in multimedia content into a cohesive presentation and really do more dynamic presentations, whether that be setting it all up on the front half or presenting it, pulling in content as it's relevant in the moment. Now, let me show you what that looks like. And so if I were to, we're actually a desktop app, but if I were to back out, right here, we can say, on this slide right here, I want to actually pull in dynamically, maybe a Demoflow homepage here. I'm going to pull that in next. I'm going to add that browser into my next slide, and then I'm going to go in and say, see, that's exactly what we allow you to do. You can pull in dynamic content like you're seeing right here, which can be your browser, and it allows you to tell a cohesive story and effectively kind of read prospects' minds. You can pull in content as they're asking questions, and it makes it really easy to tell a cohesive story. And as I transition back to my final kind of tell, I have a closing slide here, which articulates, hey, this is why it matters to tell a better story, cater to your pain points. We're going to help you close more deals on time and have predictable revenue. And look at this great customer testimonial that one of our customers is using. So very simple, tell, show, tell methodology. You can use on this kind of slide here. It can be a slide. It can be something like an Excel spreadsheet. I've seen customers use like ROI spreadsheets. If I were to log into this right here. You can pull in like an ROI spreadsheet like we're seeing right here and walk through some value points in that way. Or heck, if you had, customer video or testimonial that you wanted to bring in, you can also bring in that type of content to really help to drive home that value and make sure that, you're really articulating that value. That's what all your sales leaders want you to be doing. And this just makes it really easy. So again, when it comes to that tell, show, tell methodology, I'm going to tell you what I just told you. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you what I just told you I'm going to show you. And then I'm going to tell you why it should matter about what I just showed you. It's a little confusing, hard to say, but it's a really good method to be following. And if you do that over and over and over again, whether you're showing feature A, feature B, feature C, if you follow that same prescriptive manner, almost like a chapter, right? Feature A is tell, show, tell in that chapter. Feature B is the same thing right here. And it just, sets you up in a way to really make sure, hey, I'm not feature dumping right now. I'm going to show you things that are actually relevant, make sure I'm communicating effectively. So to kind of finish up here and in summary, when it comes to the live demo, live presentation side of things, again, it's broken down into 5 key parts. You have the introduction and agenda. That's a quick and punchy, welcome everybody here. I'm going to go over 4 to 6 bullet points about what we're going to cover today, set the context of the call. Anybody new, isolate them out. Hey, Michael, it's great to meet you. We haven't spoken yet. I'm going to, ask you specific questions about why you're here today and what you care about. on the summary of last time, again, 2 to 3 minute overview, really quick, cater it to their pains, their needs, and specifically what you uncovered on the discovery call. And then the last part is that, company overview, again, not about your founder history or when your company existed or all the customers you have. It's more about how do you solve their problems and articulating your company in a way that solves that. Solutions preview, going into the actual demo, following that tell, show, tell methodology, makes that really simple to follow more of a prescriptive type of presentation format. And then what we'll go into here next is the follow-up. So it is so easy to run a great, you run a great presentation. It's like, man, Michael just loved what I saw on this call here today. We have a perfect fit. I go back to my leader and they're like, this is going to close this month. I guarantee it. I put my job on it, like all the stuff. It's like, did you set next steps? And where do we go from here? How do you get the deal done? What happens now? And you have no idea. And you really don't have any clarity into that. And so let's talk a little bit about how do you really finalize that presentation and make sure you don't lose momentum. It happens all the time where you forget to send a follow-up email, set your next steps, all that type of stuff. So let's go into some of that, the nuts and bolts there. The follow-up. So this is really a pretty simple part of the follow-up. It's pretty easy to do, frequently missed, and will differentiate you from everybody else. And so when it comes to reviewing next steps, throughout your entire call, you might want to be documenting, writing down, whether it's on a scratch sheet of paper, Google Doc, anything else that you might have is, hey, Michael told me today, this looks great. I would need to have my CEO take a look at it before we could sign a contract. Okay, great. Let me mark down some next steps here so we can review that at the end and make sure I'm not missing anything as we're going throughout this presentation here. You could also say, I also need some legal review. Our legal review process takes about 2 weeks. Write that down. You might ask me, Larson, how does this integrate with Salesforce? And maybe I'm a brand new rep and I don't really know. General best practice is to write down these questions so you can review them with your prospect at the end. It gives them reassurance that I'm actually listening to you. I'm dealing with a professional. It's somebody that is actually going to, get things done for me, and leaves them with a good taste in their mouth with confidence as you leave the call. Second part here would be setting concrete date and time of follow-up. This is, again, another part that's missed, and I virtually never miss this now. It's, great, Michael, this sounds awesome. You said we need to meet with your CEO. When can we make that happen? Do you have access into their calendar right now? Let's set up that time right now. Why not? Let's just get next week. And Mike will come back to me and say, Larson, I don't have access to his calendar. I just can't, let's just schedule this over email. This is something that I stay pretty adamant on, and I get a little bit more pushy and say, hey, okay, I totally get it. How about this, Michael? Let's just set aside 15 minutes next week, Tuesday, just as a placeholder. I know we're not really sure, but I don't want to let this kind of fall by the wayside. Feels like we have a really strong fit here. And even if we have to move it around, that's totally fine with me. Let's just get some on the calendar. And 9 times out of 10, that's going to work very well. And people are going to agree to that. And then the last part would be, and this is crucial, after you have a great call with, whether it be a champion, a decision maker, 9 times out of 10, decisions aren't made by one person. There's multiple people involved in the deal. And what you're really doing after a call is you're equipping your champion with the assets and information that they can make sure that they can sell it internally. They might have to go back to their team who is all working underneath them, and they're pitching to them a new solution, and it's going to change some of their process. The more information you can give them to help them sell that product internally, if you don't get the chance to speak with those people directly, that's really to your benefit. So summarizing all these notes, I like to add PDF summaries into that presentation, maybe some videos, so I can equip that person with, hey, this is the steps we articulated to build that consensus. These are the outstanding questions that I need to get done for you. And here's some information and assets to help you sell this internally and get some internal buy-in. And so really how we do that, we have a meeting summary slide that we basically bake into all of our presentations, which makes it really simple. Throughout my call, I can document the next steps that are happening. So Michael, you said, we need to do a demo for our CEO. And, we said, I'm going to do that for you. And we're going to try to do that by, we'll say next week, Wednesday. And then you have legal review, right? so on and so forth. So you can see I can either be documenting this right away or we can do this after the fact. But I'm basically ending my call with all my next steps here. If there are outstanding questions, you can review this. Again, this can be a Google Doc. This doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could be something you're taking notes on the side and then you bring back into the picture here. I'd probably recommend not doing like, hey, let's look at our next steps here that I wrote on this sheet of paper. That's probably not the best idea, but doing so in a really cohesive manner and kind of reviewing this. And then of course, pulling up dates and times of availability next week, Wednesday. Here's my time. Let's send off a calendar invite and get that sent off right away. So, having this all sent, reviewing this at the end, sending a timely calendar invite is all going to be super important to make sure you don't lose any of that momentum as you're moving forward. So in review here, so again, we talked about, documenting next steps and questions as you go throughout the call, making sure you review that at the end with your prospect or audience, setting a concrete date and time of follow-up to make sure you are not letting them go or they fall off into that black abyss. And then lastly would be summarizing all of your notes into a cohesive email so you can build that consensus and make sure you're equipping your champion with the tools to really help them sell it internally. And we're moving a little bit faster than today, but that's totally fine. We can leave some time for Q&A, but kind of to review what we just reviewed here. I've been doing that quite a bit, but how to run a great product demonstration. It's really about three main parts. It's the setup. You want to look good, sound good, and feel good. Get yourself a mic, get a good background, get a good camera. You'll spend less than $100, $200 or something like that, and it'll really help to, just leave a good professional impression on everybody. And when it comes to the live presentation, live demo, there are those 5 key parts, but specifically for the product demonstration, it's the tell, show, tell methodology. And setting it up with a slide on the front half to set the context, walking through your platform in a very cohesive and prescriptive manner so you avoid that feature dumping, and then ending with a value add slide at the end to just say, hey, these are the reasons why this matters. This is the impact that you'll see. Look at this customer testimonial, this ROI spreadsheet, whatever it is that you use to justify value. That's a great point in time to do that. And then the last part would be the follow-up, is confirming the plan at the end of the call. These are all the notes that I did. And trust me, if you do that, I've had prospects be like, wow, like you got it. You're on top of your game. Wow, this is, I wasn't expecting you to have all of these notes here. Or even better is, oh man, you actually, you said that you were going to set up a call with my CEO, didn't you? Yeah, well, you took that note, didn't you? Next week, Tuesday. Oh, he's out of office. Let's do it for next week, Thursday. So it's a way to keep your audience accountable for the things they're agreeing to. It's really in your benefit, in your favor to be doing so. And then again, sending that all in a confirmation email after the fact to make sure that you have that kind of consensus moving forward and you're not, losing anybody as you kind of move throughout this presentation and then thereafterwards. So I guess with that being said, we do have 17 minutes left, so we have some time left and we can stay on for some Q&A. Let's see here. We got a question from, all right.
Larson, that was incredible. And there's several things I want to point out about this presentation. I mean, just first of all, bravo. I mean, I can tell you guys are a Techstars company. Number one, obviously, as I mentioned before we started, but the difference between this session and the last session, the people that saw it, you can obviously tell that there's room for opportunity for the last presenter, just in how they prepared themselves, navigated between screens, etc. You spoke slowly, clearly, even to the point where you know your swipes, you know how to navigate between screens. If you caught yesterday's session with Z, he talked about perfecting that script. You could tell you knew your script. You knew to go from step A, step B, step C in a certain manner. And just in terms of the presentation as in general, if you caught yesterday's session on inbound marketing, I don't think you can get much better on inbound marketing than this presentation as you are presenting versus pitching. You are prepping us with information that we could use to present a better demo or a better pitch with your own product. So bravo, this is an amazing presentation, and yeah, let's dig into some questions.
Yeah.
Rafi says, do you have tips on how to get the next steps from a client if sometimes they don't know? Can you directly disqualify a call if you sense they are a maybe?
That's a great question. Yeah, you should disqualify them. What that could be a sign of is, if I ask Michael, hey, or if let's start with maybe they didn't self-service some of those next steps and say, hey, Michael, seems like we have a good fit here. Can you tell me a little bit about how you typically purchase software? Have you ever done that yourself at the company? What does that process look like? Do you have a procurement team? Do you have legal review? Do you sign the contract, or does your superior or anyone else within the organization? And if they say, you know what? Yeah, I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't really know. Chances are they're too low level. Is you're meeting with the wrong person actually, and you're dealing with somebody that's maybe kicking some tires right now, maybe just a little bored because they're sitting at home and just looking for some human interaction or whatever that might be. But that could be a sign of a weaker deal actually. And you really should be kind of sifting out those next steps. And if they don't know, it's also a great time to be like, hey, cool, well, that's fine. Who does know really? Like who has purchased software? Who is pretty familiar with this process? And could we set up a call with them next week? Because I really feel like this is a good fit. We are going to be able to help you do X, Y, and Z. So that would be the best next steps here. So that's a great question though.
To make a comment on that too, a reminder from one of the previous sessions, don't delete those people from your CRM. Still keep them there. Maybe close it or schedule a follow-up later down the road, but do not delete them.
Mm-hmm.
Evelyn asks, what is the best way to add a user video in your demo?
Yeah, so I mean, there's plenty of platforms to help out with video. I mean, you can put it on YouTube, you can put it on Vimeo, you can embed videos into your PowerPoint slides. I mean, we're a presentation platform, so that's one of our unique value propositions is I want to go from a slide like this to a live video that's full screened and do so quickly and easily and just have this play and move around in the platform super simply. So that is kind of a unique value proposition to Demoflow. I know you can embed videos directly into your platform or into a PowerPoint slide deck. I think that's a little more challenging to do that on the fly. And so that's one unique value prop of what we do is you can pull those in or have a library immediately at your disposal so you can just quickly pull stuff in on the fly if that's meaningful.
Does your platform allow for wireframe walkthroughs?
Can you explain more?
Say you don't have your product ready yet, but you use like a wireframe like Balsamiq or something like that?
Yep. So we can pull in, that's a great point. So for early stage products or new feature developments, that can be useful for gathering customer feedback and or selling on future products, right? So yes, we can bring in really any web-based platform or URL at all, period, and bring it in as a slide. So you could seamlessly go to a Figma, a Balsamiq, any sort of mockup, we do that for user testing. We do it for upselling on current customers or enticing people. So that can be a good tactic to use, and we can bring that in pretty simply.
John asks, would you mind sharing the mic and camera for offline research? It makes a very good difference. Are you talking about the types of mic and camera that he's using, John?
Probably, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to do that. I don't have it at my immediate disposal. I don't know, Michael, if I can send it to you after the fact. Or
yeah, I was just curious. I don't need to get too techie on it. I was just it was very good. You could tell a huge contrast. So
yeah. Let me. I'll see if I can find that and maybe forward that over to you, Michael, or if we can put that in somewhere. I can maybe try to find it quickly here.
Does it say the brand name or anything like that on the mic you're using?
Yeah, let's see here. Movo, M-O-V-O. And it looks like this right here. So it's just this top part. It was about $40. And let me just see if I can pull it up here real quick. But while we're working on that, we can focus on another question here.
Britton Skinner asks, any tips for effective ways to glean info about the potential customer and their challenges before you get to the demo stage? So the demo is tailored well to their needs and problems.
Yeah. So I think when you go into a discovery call, you want to get your basics out of the way. So you want to make sure you understand the basics, like what does the company do? Who is the person that you're speaking with? Like get the basics out of the way so you're not, frankly, wasting time doing stuff that really isn't going to add value to the discussion. And it just shows that you're prepared. And assuming that you've gotten to that point, I mean, then it's really about who is the person that you're speaking with? What might they care about? Really, simply put is, I want to understand everything about what you're doing on a day-to-day basis right now and dive question after question about that. What are your initiatives as you think about moving beyond this moment in time, and where your frustrations lie? And why are those your frustrations? What would be the impact if that changed? All of this really bleeds in nicely to help to uncover that pain and that need. And when you kind of get to that, that's what really drives forward that conversation. So gaining a detailed understanding and then moving forward from there about what they like to do in the future.
If you caught Z Ali's session yesterday, he talked about making sure you've determined the appropriate avatar, the people that you're seeking out, or your archetype, knowing who that is, what roles they play, what their problems typically are. And obviously you can follow up and get more detailed, but you know who exactly you're talking to before talking to them.
Absolutely. And as a general rule of thumb too, if you think about just general orgs broken into three main structures. So you have your leaders, you have mid-level managers, and you have daily users. Leader or mid-level, or we'll start with kind of your daily users. They're the ones that you ask about the mechanics of what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. How are you selling today? How do you demo? How do you do this stuff? Mid-level managers are a blend between leaders and day-to-day users. They have empathy towards both ends of that equation. So it's good to ask day-to-day questions because they'll be familiar about that, but then also high-level initiatives. And then leadership, it's pretty good idea to stay high level. They may not be familiar with the ins and outs of how this marketing team works or the development team works or anything like that, but they might be focused on standardizing sales process across the entire organization. And so focusing on high-level discussion and topics there can help to inspire better conversation when you can kind of bucket them into three main categories.
Great questions.
Yeah.
Anything else for Larson? Larson, we do have a couple more minutes. Would you mind giving us a demo of Demoflow?
Yeah, man, I'd love to give you a Demoflow for sure.
While you're giving your demos, what are you? I mean, I know you're typically busy walking through and doing all your switches between screens, but are you taking handheld notes or anything like that, or written notes, or what are you doing?
It's a good place to start, actually. So we'll say, hey, I'm in a live presentation right now, and for most software demos are web-based applications. So we'll say that's this right here. Our solution is a desktop app, actually. So it's a little demoing a demo tool is a little meta, but as I'm walking through my presentation, I take notes right here. So I have templates based upon discovery call versus if I'm doing an onboarding. I do investor calls in here, generic meetings, we do some internal ones. And so I can quickly take notes as I'm moving throughout it. And it keeps my eyes where I want them to be, which is focused on you, but I can still do a lot of the notes that I need to help to document in my CRM. You can also go as far to say, we do have an integration directly with Salesforce. This isn't tied up to it right now, but we can take notes directly into the account or opportunity just to expedite that process. As you're kind of walking through, you find your discovery notes and you're documenting right in there. And even further is, we talked about next steps and questions and reviewing that at the end. This is a quick and easy way, as opposed to a Google Doc or a piece of paper, to come in and say, oh, all right, we have all these, different next steps that we discussed here along the presentation. There was a question around how do we integrate with Salesforce, right? And so if I'm a newer rep, I may not know the answer to that, but I still want to give you the confidence that I'm going to actually follow up on this. So these two things are just, again, important notes to be reviewing at the end, and all of it's going to manifest right here at the end, where you have all these questions, next steps. It's all right here. So you can just easily and consistently review those next steps, your questions. And you have, what this does though, is it really just says, when you go to your leader and say, hey, this deal is going to close this month for these reasons, these are my next steps. And it's very concrete. You're going to give your leadership some confidence around, is this actually going to close in that presentation or in that deal there. So
you're able to have this window open while you're doing screen shares.
Exactly right. Yeah. So basically it's back to, let's see here, this principle of sharing right now I'm sharing my desktop right now versus sharing a singular window, which is going to look like, let's see here, where is it? It's going to look like this.
A very important differentiation. That's great.
Right. But again, whether you're using Demoflow or just a browser, do that for a browser, right? I mean, I could have teammates Slack me right now. Again, no one would see anything. Like, I can bring in stuff right over this. So if you're taking notes, you could have it right over that, but it just makes it easy to control the environment that people are seeing, whether you're showing your whole desktop or showing just a singular window. I think another thing to point out here, which is really relating back to one of the questions around using video in a demo. So like we mentioned, one of our unique value props is bringing in different types of content or any web-based URL on the fly. And so if I'm right here on slide 15, I can dynamically pull in content because you never really know what people want to see, when they want to see it, or how they want to see it. You get to a part in your presentation, they're like, this is incredible. Show me a customer story, or tell me something about a customer, or I want to talk about closing, or whatever that might be. And you might need to change or alter your conversation based upon that question or objection. And so this allows you to bring in, whether it be additional browsers, you can bring them in on the fly into slide 16 and pivot right to that. Or if you had other assets right here, I have a whole library of information here where you could say, actually, let's pull in this slide. Let me explain a little bit more about how Demoflow is collaborative. And so we can pull an additional slide and say, we can actually present as a team now. You can have your colleagues jump on a call, take notes with you, build out a presentation together, and actually drive together. And so again, this part of it is really important because it can actually shorten your sales cycle. If you say, what about feature X, and you're not ready to show feature X, you have to schedule another call and you could lose them. But in this world, we can now say, no, let me show you exactly why feature X is amazing. You pull that in dynamically. And from a prospect and on an audience receiving end, I mean, if you were to, if I were to show you again, this screen right here, and I can pull in content secretly, basically, on the fly and say, what do you all integrate with? Oh, okay, let's pull in our integration slide. That was exactly what I was going to show you next. Isn't that a coincidence, right? And so from the audience's standpoint, it always feels like, man, this guy is sharp. He is like on his game. He has everything right here, right now. And I can only imagine what life is going to be like with this solution in my pocket. And so it just makes it really easy for you to be dynamic in that presentation and cater to whoever you're speaking with and how they want to be seeing that information there.
I can tell you've been a salesman for a long time, Larson. So tell me about, so you just showed us the integrations, which indeed was going to be my next question. What, if you can go back to the last slide with the different stages.
Yep.
What, you showed us the integrations. What do you find are the most helpful tools that work on either side of your demo flow, both the discovery and the close side?
Yeah, I mean, we only use Zoom. I mean, Zoom is like just the market leader there. They have virtually zero interruptions, so that's always good. I like Google Chrome, but I don't really have any strong opinion on why. And, G Suite, Office 365, I mean, Salesforce is kind of the, best of all evils, I guess. And so I think those are kind of the best sources for, different content. I found it kind of more challenging. I used to, before building Demoflow, we tried to figure out ways on, for me as a selling rep, like how do I go from slide to live URL quickly and easily? And it just required a lot of setup. It was pretty challenging to kind of move through that with fluidity. And so that's really why we built the whole platform. It was built out of need. I needed it for myself. And especially when you're working with multiple different people or parties, whether it's an SDR who's running a qualification call, or you bring that SDR in, you're an account executive and they're taking notes for you on a discovery call. We can now do all of that together in tandem. And so, if I'm prepping with one of my colleagues, you can bring them onto the call. We can prep for that asynchronously and literally run it together. Like this next button down here, they can move slides, they can add in content. We can move back and forth without any difference to the audience's standpoint, but we're not juggling stuff or doing something jarring like, cool, we're going to stop now. All right, colleague, are you ready to show now? No, you're not? Okay, we'll get there in just a second. Like, just hold on. This just allows for a seamless pass off and none of that kind of juggling when it comes to, bringing in multiple parties, which a lot of people are doing nowadays.
Gotcha. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any other questions for Larson? Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Larson. This has been incredible. I'm going to hit stop on the recording.